how you can change that if you want more out of life, which don't we all? Isn't that why we're here, right? Isn't that why you're watching this video? You're called to this because you know there's more out there and you want to take advantage of it. Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Haley Hoffman Smith and I am the friend that helps you go after your pipe dreams through manifestation and motivation. So I have been teasing this video for a while and it is going to be a self-development slash law of attraction slash manifesting slash subconscious mind book haul. So all of the books that have really given me the foundation of knowledge that I have about manifestation, about the power of the mind, and about creating the life of your dreams. And these are going to be my favorite books because I'm a voracious reader. Since everyone wants to know, okay, where should I start if I want to begin on this journey of learning for myself and reading for myself, these books will 100% make you believers and also really help you understand the neuroscience behind manifestation and just really cool happenings when you are in touch with the universe. So my first book is actually not with me because I let a friend borrow it. I am always giving this book to everybody and recommending it to everyone, but it is called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph D. Murphy. If I was teaching a college course on manifestation, the law of attraction, everything that I talk about, I would assign this book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, as the first book, like the intro chapter book, because I truly believe that once you understand the power of your subconscious, how much it rules of your reality, how our subconscious listens to everything that we say and it knows everything that's ever happened to us, and the beliefs of our subconscious mind construct our reality and how all of that happens. Once you have that firm understanding, your life will seriously never be the same. I think it provides the launch pad for everything that you will ever need to know about any of this, because I really am crazy about the science behind manifestation. Of course, energy is a thing, but I know people are sometimes like, oh, that's so woo-woo, like manifesting and energy. And so once you bring in these scientific elements and you learn more about how the brain works and the subconscious mind and the neuroscience, and as we'll soon see, the quantum physics behind manifestation, it's just a whole new world. And for me, it's really brought a lot of empowerment of, wow, these aren't things that you can just make up. Like, these are actual laws of the universe and these are verifiable facts. So therefore I have that much more confidence and that much more belief in applying these lessons to my life. I also share some really epic stories. One that stood out to me, and I was asking my best friend Rachel if there were any stories that stood out to her. The same story stood out to her was this man who would say over and over again about his daughter who had an illness, that he would give his right arm for her illness to go away. He just always said it. It was kind of like this tongue-in-cheek phrase he would say. Obviously it had a good intention. He was just saying he would give anything, but in this case his right arm, for her illness to go away. Well, he said it so many times that he actually ended up getting in a car accident with his daughter. In the car accident, his right arm was ripped off. Sorry, I know that's kind of brutal and morbid. And his daughter's illness was cured in this car accident. And when Joseph D. Murphy shares the story, it's like, there's so many stories in the book too, it's not just this one, where you just like, your jaw drops to the ground because you realize, wow, you really need to be cognizant of the things that you say out loud, because your subconscious, every time you say anything, experience anything, talk about anything, think about anything, your subconscious is constantly just saying, roger that, roger that, roger that. It's like taking little notes. It's constant. Imagine if you had somebody in taking like meeting minutes at one of your meetings, every single thing that's said. Typing it out, and that's epic to know, because then you can be really cognizant of times that you may say things like, ugh, I have the worst luck. And by the way, I just said that sarcastically. I should not have even said that out loud, because your subconscious mind also can't read sarcasm. It doesn't know if you're being sarcastic. So also on the flip side of that, if you don't believe it yet when you say things like, I'm abundant, all my dreams come true, I have a lot of luck, even if you're like, yeah, I'm lucky, like your subconscious mind is still like, lucky, roger that. It also talks about just little things within the mind that you wouldn't know. For example, it's way better to say something like, I am rich, rather than I am not broke, because your subconscious mind doesn't hear things like not or don't. It doesn't hear like those negatives. It hears the word it hears. So I am not broke, it only hears broke. So it's like, oh, I'm broke. I'm rich, just to put that one in really fast. Yes, definitely start there. It's a really good read. I promise it's not hard to understand, because we're gonna get into some books that I'm like, whoa, you know, my mind kind of, it was hard to read them in the sense that I just definitely had to reread some sentences, but that's also kind of what makes them so good because it's really jam-packed with information that we don't talk about often, but information that's really changed my life. Moving on, the next books that I would say if I was teaching a college course would be this series of books. So we have E Squared by Pam Grout and E Cubed by Pam Grout. So E Squared, funny story about this book is that I just think I was so meant to read it because one of my best friends, her name is Kristen, she lives in Rhode Island. I would stay with her all the time when I'd go back to Providence to visit, and she always had this book on her coffee table, and she'd always say, oh Haley, you'd really like it, it's about energy, and I'm like, oh cool, and I'd always see it, but I never picked it up and read it, but I was always like, oh, 9 do-it-yourself energy experiments that prove your thoughts create your reality, how freaking cool. So I would always, in the past several years, like do my own little energy experiments where I'd be like, okay, universe, show me a red truck or show me a brown mouse. And then I'd see how quickly it would come. So I was actually making some TikToks like trying to do these experiments with my audience, and I was like, okay, let's collectively manifest whatever it was. The frog was a different story. Essentially, we had a collective yet individual manifesting exercise to bring a frog into reality, and several people had frogs hop into their homes. Yes, that is real footage. I was dying laughing when I received that. After I was posting about a lot of that, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, this is like from the book E Squared. I'm like, oh, I've actually never read that book, but it was recommended to me so many times that I finally ordered it, read it. And when I say I loved this book, it's like if you were gonna equate reading to eating, it was like this was the most divine creme brulee ever. And I wanted to savor every bite, every crunch of the caramelized sugar and every little taste of the creme in the middle. That is how good this book was. I made a whole morning routine out of reading it. I would read it with a pen, so I'd be drinking my coffee and underlining certain parts that I really loved. They're both really just like 9 energy experiments, so they have the same feel. Obviously start with E Squared because this one came first. E Cubed was basically like the sequel several years later. It has a foreword by Gabrielle Bernstein, and she's an amazing author of The Universe Has Your Back and Super Attractor. Basically, when this E Squared first came out, it was not very popular. It's really wild. And then it grew to like incredible popularity. It hit #1 New York Times bestseller. So Pam Grout, the author, was like, oh, I'm back, and wrote this book. And she also shares really cool stories of people who put these energy experiments to the test and had some cool findings. Both of these books are just like, I'm gonna keep them forever. I'm probably gonna reread them numerous times. I would really start here, especially if you're not fully a believer in manifestation yet, but even if you are, by the way, if you are, this will just like solidify your belief. It will get you in a really good vibration and headspace every single day. If you're not fully there yet, try these energy experiments and read these stories. Except this isn't actually a book really about law of attraction and manifestation. However, it does talk about it extensively because the author, Jen Sincero, believes in this and puts it to the test. This book is called You Are a Badass at Making Money. Now, the reason that I chose the books I did, because I have so many books, even just here in my apartment, is because I wanted to choose books that really brought me results. And I read this book my junior year of college. I didn't have a job. I kind of had like some side gigs and freelance, and I was like, I really need to make some money. I need to figure it out. I read this book and it completely changed the way that I approach conversations about money, money mindset. And Jen Sincero writes this book in such a quippy, easy to understand, fun way, like you're talking with a best friend. One of the stories that really stands out to me about this book that I talk about often is basically Jen Sincero herself, even though now she is a New York Times bestseller and, you know, kind of most people know her name actually. She was a broke writer at one point, similar to Pam Grout. And she basically had this old dilapidated car that was breaking down. The windshield wiper stopped working, I believe. And so she kind of had a choice. She could either pay an enormous amount of money to fix this old car, or she could go lease this brand new black shiny Audi. And she said she had this moment where she had to decide, okay, do I really want to pay all this money to be back in that same car, or on the flip side of that, should I get this Audi even though it's outrageously expensive and I probably can't afford it, because every single day when I get into that driver's seat to drive this car, I'm reminded of the reality that I want to create. It's such a powerful message because it's saying, will you take the leap in your finances because you know that it's going to motivate you to be surrounded by nice things or material possessions? But it's not just like, I don't want you to think that she's trying to preach in this book about like material possessions are the way to happiness. But basically, if we go back to like Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, which is another book that I recommend, it's kind of like creating a new way of being by surrounding yourself by things that remind you of the life that you were working towards. Long story short, she got the Audi and she was able to pay it off no problem. And I really relate to that story because I was really worried about moving to New York City almost a year ago now, really wild, and moving into this apartment. And I was just like, I have to take that leap. And I really thought of Jen Sincero's story with that. And I was like, I have to be surrounded by that energy. You know, this apartment building, I absolutely love it. It feels very luxurious. I'm in love with my actual unit, even though it's small, it has the floor to ceiling windows and all the things I always talk about. And I just remember Jen Sincero saying like, well, who is it that you want to be? And don't you want to be reminded of that person, you know, every single day when you are in that car, you are in that apartment, or you're using that lipstick or whatever it is, whatever little small thing reminds you of wealth consciousness and reminds you that money is renewable and helps you feel tapped into abundance. Like, aren't you willing to go to great lengths and kind of take a leap of faith to be that person? And I had the same experience that Jen had. Jen, I'm saying it like we're BFFs. I feel like she's my BFF. You will too after reading this book. But once I moved into this apartment, I was able to afford it with ease. And it's really amazing how you take those leaps, what happens. So amazing for money mindset, and also just like cool business savvy, and just like what it means to be paid what you're worth and ask for what you're worth. By the way, a podcast along these lines, I'm only saying this because I just recently launched this podcast episode, but I made an entire episode with a woman named Tara Malarkey, who has a course called the High Ticket Empress about charging what you're worth, money mindset, breaking income ceilings, etc. And if you like this book, if you have read it, or if you kind of want to like tag team it, I really recommend this episode. I'll link it below. Okay, so next up is a book that you probably have heard about before. It is called A Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron Gikandi. I hope I pronounced his last name right. I would see this book all the time over a lot of Instagram stories of other spiritual people or people who believe in manifestation who I follow, and the subtitle is Infinite Wealth and Abundance in the Here and Now, and I was like, love that. We love wealth and abundance. So I just recently got this book and I was really amazed right off the bat, because really right when you open the book, it goes right into a chapter on quantum physics. I was, you know, I'm never really into the sciences. I never really did well in science classes when I was in high school, and so I felt very intimidated at first. But basically the way that David says to read this book is to read it first quickly, which is hard to do at first when you're going through this entire chapter on the quantum physics of the universe and all these insane scientific truths about the way that things are and how potentially the universe is a hologram. You're reading through it and you're like, okay, I have to read through this quickly, but also what is happening? Like, it really blows your mind. Once you get through that chapter though, you get into, I don't want to say basics, but kind of basics, like kind of staples about abundance, being in the right money mindset, the law of attraction. And after you've read E squared and E cubed, it's not going to be anything you haven't heard before, but it's the reason I think it's so important to keep reading this material is that everybody says it in a different way. And the more stories you can read about it and the more evidence that you can get of it, and the more that you can keep your vibration in alignment with abundance by reading about abundance mindset, the better, because it's really easy to fall out of it, right? So that's why I make sure I'm constantly inundating my mind with this information, because it's not really second nature to remember that every second our thoughts are creating our reality, or our vibration is creating our reality, or that it's our divine birthright to have abundance. I have really enjoyed this book, given I'm only halfway through, but other people have recommended it, so that's why I felt very confident recommending it to you right here. This one would probably be a good after one for you are a badass at making money. And just a note on the way that this video has been structured, I am recommending books in the order in which I think you should read them if you haven't read them before, because they definitely kind of like work up. And that leads me to my final recommendation for this video. In this book, how do I put this? This book will definitely change everything for you. By the way, these other books will too. These other books will too, but this book is trippy. I don't know a better word for it. This book will take your mind and the way that you view the world and turn it on its head. Now, this is a very scientific-y book because it's called The Holographic Universe, the revolutionary theory of reality that explains the latest frontiers of physics, the paranormal abilities of the mind, and the unsolved riddles of brain and body by Michael Talbot, or Talbot. I'm sorry, I should really know these things. But you're just gonna read it anyway, so do we need to pronounce it? Anyways, this book is very heavy on the quantum physics, and it's basically sharing all of the research of these two quantum physicists who worked with Einstein, actually. And it does share some of what Einstein's theories were and how Einstein was really grappling with these ideas, but it posits that the universe is a hologram. Pause for impact. And I know that is wild, but the way that it describes it and the different parts of the physics of the world. I'll just give you like a little taste of it. Basically, quanta, which is like the smallest version of matter that there could be. If you take a page of a book and you break down the page into all of its little atoms, and you're under a microscope and you keep breaking it down, and it gets down to what is called quanta, then you'll see that quanta isn't actually anything at all. It's literally nothing. So everything that's around us, even though we can feel it and we can see it and it all feels and seems so real, it's actually all just quanta multiplied. And if quanta, if the very core building block of everything that we see around us isn't real or isn't matter, then how is this happening, right? It shares some really trippy considerations like that, but it does it in a science sense, and it also is honest about the limitations of this theory, where certain scientists and physicists have not agreed, and some evidence of the contrary, but overall, I'm starting to believe that the universe is a hologram. So given I'm only halfway done with this book, but others have recommended it and they've said it's amazing and that it's completely changed their lives, it's definitely a book that you need to take slowly. I was rereading pages last night. I think if you have a background in physics and you've heard about these things before, it may be a little easier for you, but a lot of us don't have backgrounds in physics, so it's okay. I really think this is a book that if you want to change the way that you look at the world around you, it's a must read. I just think it's so interesting to keep learning about new ways of viewing the world and viewing our human experience. And having that science to back it up is so profound, because it's not just, ooh, what if, like a conspiracy theory type thing. It's more of a, okay, given all of these truths that we can find evidence for, you know, these truths that were once hypotheses that there have been countless experiments and trials on and research done on, what can we take as truth about our realities? Overall sense of all of these books that I really want to communicate is just that there's more to reality than meets the eye. You have more power than what meets the eye. You know, you're not just living a life of things that happen to you. You're living a life where you can happen to things and you can influence the course of your life. That leads me to another book that I mentioned earlier, but I don't have it with me because it's on my Kindle, is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. That would also be classified in the advanced section, where every single sentence you read makes you feel like your entire universe is shifting, because it's like, whoa. But this is all about understanding the patterns of your brain, your beliefs, the way that your beliefs construct your view of the world and therefore your experience of the world, and how you can change that if you want more out of life, which don't we all? Isn't that why we're here, right? Isn't that why you're watching this video? You're called to this because you know there's more out there and you want to take advantage of it. Then I will end with just a little ancillary book, and this is called The Secret Language of Your Body. I call it an ancillary book because it's a good book to have on hand, but it's not one that you're gonna sit down and read front to back. It's essentially like a glossary. So say that you have a headache. You're able to look up the metaphysical reason that you have a headache. This is very Louise Hay when she has her whole like heal your body, heal your life type of work. Let's look at this example. If you have an issue with your ankle, so say that your ankle swells up a lot or bothers you. Possible contributing factors: feeling weighed down by too much responsibility, overcommitting yourself and feeling like you have chains around your ankles, feeling trapped in a destructive relationship, friendship, job, or situation that you don't know how to leave, thinking that you have no choice, inability to trust, step forward and embrace your dreams for fear of making mistakes, wanting to be right, feeling off balance, and not knowing what step to take next. So it really goes into depth. And then like say that it is your left ankle, it will go into like what the left ankle is, which I could read that to you, but I don't know how many of you guys are having ankle issues. Basically they have it for everything that you could possibly be feeling. And then it gives you a background on affirmation or a mantra or a prayer that can help you. So say that you are having issues with your lungs. You have been experiencing respiratory issues, maybe asthma, maybe like really intense allergies, pneumonia. There is basically a whole thing that you can say. In this case, it says, Divine Healing Intelligence, I ask you to release all feelings of sadness, anguish, suppression, dependence, and tiredness from my lungs. Help me let go of my tendency to put myself last and to do too much for others, my inability to say no, as well as all points of view, all patterns, and the positive and negative charges that contribute to this condition. And it says repeat the word clear until you feel a shift occur. Really cool, because if you know anything about lungs, it says that the contributing factors potentially could be sadness, yearning, weepy, anguish, tired, suppressed, difficulty expressing or standing up for yourself, inability to say no. So it basically says what you can do to counteract, almost like an affirmation or a prayer to Divine Healing Intelligence, to fix the metaphysical or emotional cause of your physical symptoms. I just like to have this on hand whenever weird symptoms come up, just to understand yourself more, right? Because if you have some reoccurring pain or sickness that keeps coming up, maybe there's something deeper to it. And I think it's worth a consideration. I don't know enough about this to be like, every single time you're sick or have an ailment, it's because of this, but it's worked for me. And that's all I can do on here is share what's worked for me. So I hope that these help you. I hope that they direct you in a good direction with your holiday reading, perhaps, as we head into winter and we want to cozy up by the fire and learn more about the universe and energy and quantum physics. How much fun is that? Our subconscious mind, woo, is ready for a makeover. I have linked all of the books below so you can grab them from Amazon, 2-day shipping, woot woot. I really hope you enjoy them. If you've read one of these books and you also recommend it, make sure to comment it down below. And if you read a book because of my recommendation in this video and you enjoy it, let me know. Tell everyone, tag people who need to hear these books and read them with you. Host book clubs, because it's really cool to go through these books with others and then talk about what you get from them, because then you get even more and you get to have some really great discussions about what you both took from the book and what to do moving forward, turn them into action items. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for tuning in.